Hey boys, what's good? Today we're going to be looking at some building stuff, just some building tips that I would recommend using, and ways to get where you want your build to go. So yeah, let's just get started. So this video is going to be focused on survival houses, just basic survival houses. And here we have two noob houses. So probably what you would see like 500 times over on any factions or survival server or whatever. Here, firstly, let's look at what you shouldn't do. I think there are a few obvious things. Firstly, it's got a dirt floor or a grass floor. It's 2 blocks tall, so it's really claustrophobic. It's made all out of the same material. It's just oak, which is really boring. One thing I wanted to point out, not only does it just have like, glass instead of glass panes, but it has glass in the first place. And we'll get to that in a second, but this is not something that you should build at all. This is not the noob starter house to build. I wanted to mention staircases. So a lot of times in smaller houses on survival servers, I will find staircases for some reason, even though they take up a lot of materials, they take up a lot of space, and they're just a pain to fit in your house. As opposed to, here we have what your noob starter house should look like. Let's just take a tour real quick. Right off the bat, you can see it's 1 block taller. If we go inside, we can see we have wood floors, and if we break a block here, we can see it's slabs instead of wood. We can see that our ceiling is also slabs, so we have plenty of room, not claustrophobic at all. Our windows are nice and tall. Our windows are made out of fences instead of glass. Now we're gonna get to why I said don't use glass. Early on in the game, you will misplace windows. There's a huge chance of it happening. It happens to the best of us. And when you want to expand your house, you're gonna have to break windows. And you can't get your glass back without silk touch, which you can't get early in the game without some incredible luck. That's why I say use fences instead. Fences are just so much better, so much easier to make, so much less expensive. You don't have to worry about breaking them and then losing it. So many reasons. For another thing, we have cobblestone at the base. We're not using the same material, and there are multiple reasons for that. Firstly, because all wood looks really dumb. For another thing, when you're starting off in the game, there's a higher chance that you will have both wood and cobblestone, and you would want to use both in your house just because maybe you don't have enough wood, you have some cobblestone, so just make a layer of cobblestone to not have to put so much wood down. And just because it's aesthetically better. And then I also have 2 examples of what you could do instead of a staircase. This is bulky, it takes up a lot of resources, don't do it. Here, instead, we have a very small system with ladders and a trapdoor. You could even take away the bottom ladder, and this is still completely usable. We can get on top, easy peasy, no problem, right? I'm just gonna put this back here for the sake of having it the way it was. You could also, if you're a little bit later in the game and you have found a jungle, or maybe you just spawned in a jungle, you can use these scaffolding, which is fantastic because then you don't have to worry about putting a trapdoor on it. You can already, stand. This is a whole block that you can stand on right here. It blends in your floors, especially if you have like birch floors or something. So very easy, takes up exactly the same amount of space, and scaffolding looks better if it's in a corner or something, or hidden like flush against a wall or something like that. So you can use whichever one. Some applications are better than others. Pick your poison. Now we're gonna move on to how we can upgrade our correct noob house, the one that you should build. Most of these upgrades, by the way, are things that you can do directly, not like you have to rebuild your entire house. Those down there will get to that point, but by the time we get down there, we will already have 1,000 times better house anyway, and we won't have to worry about that. Here we can see there's not really much of a difference on the outside until you look at the back, and that's where my recommendation comes in to make your house an interesting shape. Don't just make it a box, because this right here is really boring. This right here, on the other hand, is a little bit more interesting. We have some more room, first off, just it's more interesting to look at. So if we go inside, we can see we've, kind of changed around our interior. We have kind of like an entryway here now. We have all our, same stuff as in the interior of those two houses. Same deal with everything else, layer of cobblestone, windows are fences, 3.5 blocks tall, all that stuff. And now we can move on to our second upgrade to our noob house, which is adding some depth. So for this style, I chose to add wooden framing. Obviously, for other styles, you might not do that. For other similar styles, you might still do it. That's the only thing I added to this. Besides the framing, all I added was another block of height. Just a little bit more roomy in here. A little bit nicer to walk around it. Let's move on to the roof. This is how a noob might make the roof. It's not good. I'm just gonna say it. It's not good. What we have here is an all wood roof. Just all wood. We have basically no overhang. You can see that it's flush with our framing here, which is no good. It's really blocky. It doesn't look great, but it's a roof nonetheless, and it is an upgrade that you can make. Now over here, we can see that we have an upgraded roof. We have that overhang, which adds to the depth and it makes it look more natural and nice. We have a less blocky, kind of like a smoother roof going on right here, which is quite nice. Other than that, we haven't really changed anything at all. It's basically the same roof. Now if we move on, we can see here we are getting even more interesting. The roof is now framed by cobblestone. That makes it look 100 times better already. Like, this is already a pretty good starter house. I would be tempted to just leave it here, but me being the creative type that I am and being a builder at heart, I'm gonna move on to this, which is a change in palette. So obviously this is a decision that you're gonna wanna make before you even start building your house, because you don't wanna go and change almost every block in your house. You can see we've changed the cobblestone to stone bricks, oak to spruce. We've changed the door. We haven't changed the windows, but that's about the only thing we haven't changed. Just, this looks a lot cleaner. That could be a style that you could, work with, obviously, but I prefer this just because it's more my aesthetic, I guess. It's kind of cleaner looking. Now we move on to detailing. That house is great and all, but it's really, really bland. Like, it's just so bland. Here, we add just a little bit of detail. You can see we've added these little slabs to the corners of our roof, kind of adds to it a little bit. We have these flower planters in front of all of our windows, kind of like structural look to our wooden pillars here, like supports for our beams here that look nice. Just generally very, very small details that can make it look really, really nice. So if we move on again, now we can see here's the step where you would add block variation. So you can see we've replaced stone bricks with andesite and stone. Since they're all pretty much the same color, then they blend together really nicely and they just make it look so much nicer. You can also see that we've added some variation to our roof right here. We've added just solid blocks and slabs to make it look a little bit more rustic and handmade. We've also added variation to structural elements down here. And then we've also added some stained terracotta instead of our wood here, just to add even a little bit more variety to our build. If we move on again, here we can see we've focused on the exterior a lot, generally the landscape. We've added like a little hedge here, not, anything that's gonna protect you. It's purely aesthetic. And a little pathway, and this little entrance right here, which is really pretty, and some shorter trees, and also some taller trees. And then we've added a nice little garden back here. This is actually a great functional part of our house. A lot of it has been aesthetics up to this point, but now we are actually getting into the functionality of how you could improve just living, eating, kind of a necessity in survival Minecraft. Obviously, I still haven't focused on interior at all. It's the exact same interior as before. But when we move on to our final stage, this is where I focused on basically just improving everything. We've worked on our foliage, we've spruced it up quite a bit. We now have this little pond right here, like an end shrine, assuming that you've been to the end at some point. Obviously, this is not going to be early game, but if you wanted to add this, you could after beating the Ender Dragon after a while. Added a little bit more to this, not too much though, no dramatic changes. And then we've also focused on interior. In this little entry place right here, we have a chest to store all our stuff while we are out gathering materials and stuff. We have some basic crafting stuff like a stone cutter and a crafting table and a furnace. We have a place to cook our food right here. We have just a plant for aesthetics. We have some armor stands where we can keep our armor. And then we have this little area right here. We can head up to the attic space, which I've added a couple beds, an ender chest, a crafting table, jukebox, little fireplace right here, and then this, which is really cool and should definitely be added to your house. This is like a little perch for, you know, if you wanted to look out for any hostile mobs outside your house or whatever, or shoot them or whatever you want to do. Obviously, it's your choice. You can add it or not. This would be a really cool addition to any house in survival. It's a good functional element. And then we can move down to the basement, which is where all the cool stuff is. We have the floor. It's a little bit more on the expensive side. It's some cyan terracotta. We have an enchanting room right here, and while this might look pretty fancy due to the redstone elements, like the ability to remove levels from your enchanting table to get different enchantments, this can all be done with really basic redstone. Like, we have like 6 redstone torches, some redstone wiring, and just a lever back here. And then we have 7 repeaters, a lever, some redstone wiring that goes under the floor. Really basic stuff. Just, obviously the pistons are set up to do that cool timing thing. Just an aesthetic choice. Doesn't have to be something that you implement, but this is just my interpretation of a cool enchanting room. We also have all of our tool blocks over here. We have a couple anvils, a couple stone cutters, a couple grindstones, and some other tables right here, like a smithing table and a loom and a cartography table. Then over here we have our brewing place. We have a chest that we can keep our brewing stuff in, and a couple brewing stands, and then a cauldron to keep our water in. And then over here we have our furnace room. We have some smokers down there, blast furnaces down there, and then the rest are just regular furnaces. We have a place to drop our unwanted items right here. Very convenient. And then we have this chest room right here. And I wanted to point out that a lot of times chest rooms are just overlooked. People will just throw chests in their basement and call it a day. Just throw a ton of chests in there and be okay with it. But I think it's important to be organized, so I made a whole bunch of sections. So, for example, one might put blocks in this pillar of chests right here, and food in this one. So just to stay organized, it's a very nice setup. And then we also have kind of like a more formal entrance to our mine right here. And this is how every mine should be built. Because this way we can go up and down just with stairs, or we can choose to do so with a minecart. Very easy to do, and you're not bumping your head on anything. Obviously, you're not having to jump every time you want to go up. It's just stairs, but you also have this area right here where you can just take the minecart down. All of those things are very important, and I think they are often overlooked. So I'm not exactly going to go into detail how I built this house. It was a combination of me working at it for a while and world edit and a whole bunch of other things. But the point is, you can turn this tiny little noob house right here, this one right here, this innocent looking little box of wood and cobblestone, into an actual nice looking house like this. Like, look at that. That's beautiful. I would love to live in that in my survival world. I think another point of this video is just I got tired of seeing this right here. I got tired of seeing this on every survival server. A 2-block tall wooden box with glass windows and a dirt floor. It's just atrocious. It looks horrible. It's not functional at all. There's just so much better that can be done than this stupid little box. So if you're gonna make a stupid little box, make it like this, because this is so much more manageable. There are no materials that when mined you cannot get them. It's actually a good size inside, so you don't feel all claustrophobic. If you wanted to, you could even replace these fences with trapdoors, and then you would be able to, I don't know, shoot mobs outside if some are not letting you sleep or something. That would even be very handy. But my point is, there are a lot of things to take into account when building a house, and a lot of people just completely skip all of them. They skip the depth, they skip the block variety, they skip the color palette, they skip detail. They put too much detail into it. They don't make it functional. Or if it's in survival, maybe it's just not functional at all. So when you make stuff, obviously have a lot of functionality in mind, but also have aesthetics in mind, because this could be a lot more functional, but it would look really, really ugly. Obviously, I know you're not going to make this on your first day in Minecraft. It's basically impossible. Honestly, one of these first 3 is probably as far as I would get on my first day of Minecraft. Like, I know you're not going to make a whole lot of progress to begin with, but at least have a good foundation to build on. Don't make something atrocious that can't be turned into something beautiful like this. You don't have to have insane build skills to make something look nice like this. I wouldn't call myself an amazing builder. I would say I'm decent, but that's what makes these kinds of simple house designs really useful, because with a little bit of effort, everybody can do them, and they can transform a tiny wooden box into a beautiful house like this. So I guess the point of this video was really just to say, stop building tiny wooden boxes. It's also to encourage you to be more creative with how you build your house. You know, it doesn't have to look exactly like this. This is just one style. It's just one house in one style. Obviously, you can make tons of other houses in the same style, or a million other houses in completely different styles. I'd say just explore your creative side when it comes to houses, because you don't want to end up living in a sad wooden box, because that's no fun to come home to. After a long day out chopping wood or killing creepers or whatever, you don't want to come back to a wooden box. That's just lame. The inconvenience of having a tiny wooden box with glass windows is just horrible. So make yourself a manageable house. Make yourself a nice house. It doesn't have to be this. This is just one house, like I said. Just make it a nice house. I think I'm going to do some more build tutorials later. This is really just kind of showing you what kind of vibe you should be going for when you're building a house. But for now, I think this does it. Honestly, I hope that after watching this, you feel a little bit more inspired to go build something creatively. Go build something aesthetically pleasing. So with that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful and creative day. Stay peachy, boys.